Shalom. This is Yeshaya Yisrael, giving honor and praise unto Yah, the creator of heaven and earth. We are in Deuteronomy 28, verse 68, part 3. Now, I wanted to actually kind of deviate a little bit from the notes I actually made concerning this subject. I want to go into a book. It's called The Bible is History by Ian Wilson. And on page 151, we read this concerning one of the kings of Israel. Either way, Jehu became an Assyrian puppet, whiling out a largely undistinguished reign for some 30 years, during which he had at least outlived Shalmaneser. This speaking about Shalmaneser III of Assyria. The latest successors then became too preoccupied with problems closer to home to have much interest in him. Meaning that after Shalmaneser III, the Assyrians had their own issues, so they really wasn't worried much at that point about the house of Israel. As further evidence of both the Israel and Judahite kingdoms' weakness during his time, the Bible and archaeological findings alike show that peoples neighboring to the old Solomon Empire took their opportunity to break free and wreak whatever vengeance they could upon their former oppressors. That is to state that after the era of Jehu, the king of Israel, you had it to where the Edomites and the Moabites and these other nations who the Israelites actually had in subjection, they broke from that and then they decided to go against the house of Israel. All right? Thus, the previously cooped up Philistines and Arabs invaded the plundered city of Judah, which may well account for yet another destruction of the Arad fortress at around this time, while the Edomites, whom King David's general Joab had so ruthlessly suppressed, likewise broke away. There is also evidence that many of those time-honored allies, the Canaanites/Phoenician inhabitants of Tyre, that being by where Asher and Zebulun was in the north, were forced around this time to quit their city. They moved all the way across the Mediterranean to found Carthage in what is now Tunisia, as well as Thoros in Sardinia. And despite having very good reason to remain at peace with each other for mutual support, Israel and Judah failed even in this. In 796 BCE, Jehu's descendant, Jehoash, reportedly took an army southwards to fight his counterpart, King Amaziah of Judah, and defeated him at Beit Shemesh. So if we follow in Deuteronomy 28, we know good and well that this is talking about a situation where you were cursed in the city and cursed in the field. Now, brothers and sisters, I wanted to sit there and read another reference. It's from the book I quoted in part 2, Hebrewisms of West Africa. We're going to go to page 132, and it reads this. With reason, then, Lewis Brown, in connection with the destruction of Jerusalem, takes care to note the scattering of the Jews, that is to say, of the tribe of Judah, through foreign lands, the diaspora, as it is usually called, had already been in process for many centuries before the fall of Jerusalem. So, the point in me reading this right here, it just distinctly shows good and well that the scattering of the people of Judah and thus ultimately the people of Israel was done before the fall of Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar. So now we already read in part 2 that Jerusalem was besieged. All right. So we already know exactly what that's talking about. It was the Babylonians that did that. Prior to that, the Assyrians besieged the city of Lachish. When you go to the book of Isaiah chapter 36 verse 1. Let's go there. The book of the prophet Isaiah 36 verse 1, and it reads as follows. Now it came to pass in the 14th year of King Hezekiah that Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, came up against all the defense cities of Judah and took them. Let's go, if you will, into 2 Kings. We are in 2 Kings chapter 18 verse 13. And it reads as follows. Now in the 14th year of King Hezekiah, did Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, came up against all the defense cities of Judah and took them. And Hezekiah king of Judah sent to the king of Assyria to Lachish, saying, I have offended. Return from me. That which thou hast put upon me will I bear. And the king of Assyria appointed unto Hezekiah king of Judah 300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold. So what that is talking about right there is that the children of Israel, in this case being the tribe of Judah, they was besieged by the Assyrian king Sennacherib. So you already, as stated in previous videos, you had Judah that was taken into the land of the people of Assyria. All right, so that has to and should be known and understood. All right, now I want to sit there and show a picture concerning the kind of thing that we're talking about. This right here is familiar to many, many people. This right here is speaking about Jehu, as you see prostrated him right here, to Shalmaneser III, the king of Assyria. Now, when you go in your own time and reference, this same Shalmaneser III also spoke about concerning the war of Karkar, sometimes spelled as Qar, Qar, Kar, Kar. Well, the battle of Karkar fought between the Assyrians and their enemies. The Israelites also, prior to the situation there, was joined up with them when you read about Ahabu Isra'ala or Ahab the Israelite when you read the Assyrian record of Shalmaneser III. You can go online and look up and see Ahab, 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 king of Israel, in association with Shalmaneser III, the king of Assyria, and you will see how the Assyrians spoke about the Israelites in a battle in their own Assyrian records. All right, now this right here also goes to show, brothers and sisters, that the Israelites are written about in other people's records. So that's a whole nother subject for a whole nother discussion. But what we're going to get back into, brothers and sisters, is Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. We're going to start once again in verse 68. And it says, The Most High will bring you back into Egypt in ships. By the way whereof I sent unto you, you shall never see it again. And there you shall be sold unto your enemies for male and female servants, and no man shall buy you. Now, I wanted to sit there and go over concerning another point for those who attempt to state that Deuteronomy 28, verse 15 to 68 is solely and only talking about the Romans. Let's go, if you will, to the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, verse 45, once again. We are in Devarim, or Deuteronomy 28, verse 45 again. And it says, and this right here is important. That's why, if it may seem redundant, I apologize. But concerning this matter right here, we got to understand what this is talking about. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee. All these curses, the curses before, verse 45, and the curses after. Moshe from verse 45 and 46, 47, 48 is speaking about what will happen, the duration of when it will happen. When it says upon thy seed forever, let olam in Hebrew means for an undetermined length of time. It's not saying forever like eternally. All right, so let that be understood in verse 46. Now in verse 45, where it says, Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because you did not hearken. And it gives you the reason why Israel will go through these things. Hearken unto the voice of the Most High your King, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. So breaking the Lord's statutes and commandments is why Israel went into captivity. It's not because they didn't believe in somebody being a prophet or a Messiah. It is not because they sat there and didn't want to follow the ways of the kings of Israel. It is simply because they did not keep the law, statutes, and the commandments of the Most High. Now, one of the things to also point out, if we go into verse 25, remember it says, all these curses shall come upon thee and pursue and overtake thee, right? Verse 25 says, the Most High will cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and thou shalt be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. Now, the Hebrew in Deuteronomy 28, verse 25, it says, Wahita laza'awa lako mamlako ta'aretz, which literally doesn't mean you shall be removed to all the kingdoms of the earth. It does speak about Israel being scattered in another part in verse 64. But what this is talking about in verse 65, ta'awa, in this case means you'll be a horror to all the kingdoms of the earth. So if you look even at the major kingdoms that came up in the earth in reference with the children of Israel, Babylon came up as a kingdom under Nebuchadnezzar. You could see how they treated King Jehoiakim, the Medes and the Persians, and how they dealt with the house of Israel when you go in the book of Ezra. And they were saying, no, don't have them sit there and build the temple and everything like that. And then Darius made the decree and so forth and so on. So that's how you can see they was a horror to all the kingdoms of the earth. The situation with the Greeks, when you go into the book of the Apocrypha, in the era of the Maccabees, they used to take little Israelite children and lynch them, or as it says there, hang them up by the neck. That is the lynching. We went over the issue of lynching in part 2 of Deuteronomy 28, verse 68 presentation. Then you got the situation with the Romans, and what they used to do with Israelites, they used to sit there and have them decorated on trees with their heads. So you can see exactly what was going on. And over in this captivity here, excuse my language, but I wanted to quote exactly what it was. They used to put gunpowder inside the black man's anus in the southern United States, ignite it with fire, and blast them, and they called it blasting the black's ass. Excuse my language, but I just want to sit there and explain exactly what used to happen. Concerning the sisters, when it says in Deuteronomy 28, verse 66, and thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shall have no assurance of your life. They used to sit there and take black women, hang them, and cut the baby out. The woman is dead, and then step on the head of the child. That's what they used to do with us in these captivities over here in the Western Hemisphere. So, in Deuteronomy 28, verse 25, when it says, Wa'yita and you shall become a horror to all the kingdoms of the earth. That's exactly how we are. And to this day, we're still a horror to the kingdoms of the earth. Brothers and sisters, in this kingdom, America, for instance, Mississippi did not declare slavery to be illegal until 1996. By then, the hip-hop era done sat there and sprang forth. Black people done been mayors in different cities and all of that. The state of Mississippi did not declare slavery to be illegal until 1996. Brothers and sisters, I was already in high school at that point. That's very interesting for it to be known. So we can see exactly what this captivity here is talking about. So the Matzor, meaning the distress, the Matzorayim, we went over and explained that Ayim is the double of whatever. So the Matzorayim, or the double distress, right here, baby. That's what it's talking about. It's not talking about Titus bringing Israelites over into the literal land of Egypt. We're going to get into that in part 4 concerning this presentation. Now, one of the things concerning this subject right here is that Deuteronomy 28, verse 68 in the Hebrew, we're going to go over the part again where it says, it shall not be seen unto thee again, or it was not to be added to you again. Lo tosif od leor ota. All right, so that way we can sit there and gain some kind of understanding. Hey, Sif, as stated in part 2, is speaking about adding or increasing. This Matzorayim, Mitzrayim, the distress of the sea, was not supposed to be added to you again when you left out of Egypt before. So let that be known and understood. All right, now, brothers and sisters, if we will, let's continue on in this presentation. And it says what? Wahit makar tim. That's where we ended off in the last part. The word makir means, or makar means to sell. Hit makir means to sell yourself. This is the 7th of the 7th stem in Hebrew, which is the reflexive. So makarti, I sold. I devoted. Hit makarti, I sold myself. I devoted myself. So that's what it's talking about. It's not saying, and I quote, it is not saying you shall be sold unto your enemies. It is literally from the Hebrew saying you will sell yourself. It is the reflexive. Like in Spanish, the little bit of Spanish I know, correct me if I'm wrong, yavar means to wash, and yavar se means to wash oneself. Well, rakats in Hebrew means to wash, and hit rakets means to wash oneself. So makir means to sell, and hit makir means to sell oneself or to devote oneself. So what it's saying right here is not saying you shall be sold unto your enemies. It's saying you will devote yourself or you will sell yourself. The reflexive from the hey and the tau represented in front of the standard verb represents the reflexive of whatever that verb is. It is called the hit pa'el stem in Hebrew. Wahit makartem sham lo oibeka, and you shall devote yourselves there to your enemies. Oyed means to be an enemy. La abadim for male servants. Walish pakot and female servants. Wa ain quone. And there is no buyer. There is no purchaser. We're going to get into the word quana in part 4. Shalom.